Hey guys, welcome back. Here I am. Let me get some water here. It is me, Adam. You might remember me from such pictures as. Anyway. So, apologies for last week. I said kind of in the update, but I had kind of a sleep schedule thing going on, and I didn't sleep well. Friday, it just got because I work overnights. I'm gonna use my hands as much as possible. I work overnight, so it kind of jacked up my sleep schedule. So, I woke up at 6 p.m. on a Saturday, and I was just like, well, we're not doing anything today. I'm just going to sit and watch Community, which is a great show, by the way. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. It was on several years ago, but it's great. Great ensemble cast. Check that out. Free plug. Anyway, we're not going to talk about shows right now. We're going to continue the story of Turbo Turkey, Part 3. Of many, many other parts. I'm not sure exactly how long ago. We'll just pretty much go up to now. So there's a lot to go, people. We're only in 2011. So anyway, when we last left off on our adventure, I had talked about how I gotten cast in a lot of shows in 2011. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about those and also a little bit about financial things I was dealing with, which if you remember 2010, there were some issues financially, and even 2009. But 2011 and into 2012 were just like the tip of the iceberg in terms of, God, I'm just drowning. So anyway, when I was doing 2, I was actually collecting partial unemployment because after I'd actually been doing that for a little while, but I think I've been reapproved to continue it because I hadn't found another second job. I was just doing my soccer job and doing that as much as I possibly could to make my money and pay my bills. So like I said, at that time I was still driving the Prism with the busted window, which had the tape and the plastic bags. There's times it's funny because I would literally if it snowed or something like that, then I would just have snow, or if it was fall, the leaves would just fall in my back seat because that's it's the wind, the plastic window. It's because the thing is I just had no money to fix the window, so it's just the way it was. But yeah, I can remember on the way back from one of our tech rehearsals for that 2011 show, I remember I had gotten a flat tire, and it's I knew it was a flat tire, but I was like, oh, I just gotta get closer to home because I lived down near Auburn at the time, and or Lee Hill area, and it was just if I just get it home, then I can change it there, and it did. I ran it down pretty good, but and I was able to change it, but yeah, and I would get many more flat tires. In fact, I got a flat tire while I was in the parking lot for a rehearsal at 2 one time, and it was just crap. Anyway, so I got, as I said, I did 2. It was a lot of fun. It was my first lead role, and not my first, but yeah, pretty much my first lead role. Yeah, that's another story, the Bridgework story. I technically was in the lead role, but I'm not going to get into that one right now. Doesn't have to do with Turbo Turkey. That's more of a theater-based story that I will talk about another painful time in my life. Anyway, back to the point. Basically, what had happened was that we were doing 2, and it was a lot of fun, as I said many times already. I'm just rambling, aren't I? I'm the rambling master. But yeah, so we did the show. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the people we worked with. Our director, Rochelle, like I said, worked with several times after that, which I'll talk about later. But it was cool. It was a really good experience. I felt like I grew as an actor, and will continue to grow as the years go by. But anyway, right during that, like I said, I had an audition up in, near Bellingham. It's not all the way in Bellingham, but it's close to Bellingham. The company is called Shakespeare Northwest, and they do Shakespeare, and they have this it's called the Rexville Garage Auditorium. I think it's Garage Auditorium. It's something like that. Rexville Grange, maybe that's it. That might be it. But they have this lovely, it's got almost like an old church inside thing, but then there's also this outdoor space and this big rock and all this wooded area and stuff like that. So it's great for a outdoor Shakespeare show. But you can also have scenes that go inside too, but you kind of have the audience kind of, follow the show. So it kind of works its way around. So you start indoor and then you go around outdoor. So it's really cool. But like I was excited to do that because it was like I hadn't done Shakespeare since Richard III in college. Yeah, was the last Shakespeare I'd gotten to do. So I was super excited to do it. Like I said, I played Duke Senior, and so he's kind of, in this version at least, he's kind of the hippie in the garden. He's kind of left his dukeness, and he's just kind of chilling, enjoying life, man. And I had a good time working with the guy who played, oh God, what's the character's name? Can't remember the character's name right now. It's been a while since I've read Shakespeare. But he played guitar. He actually did play guitar, and so he was kind of like my guitar player friend who played guitar. And we had a great time. We pretended, we took a picture one time where I was kind of doing a Mick Jagger thing because he was going for a Keith Richards thing with a cigarette in his mouth, and so it was funny. It was good. His name was Miles. He's a really cool guy. And yeah, so after 2 wrapped up, which was part of the Playwright Festival, which interesting enough, the way the Playwright Festival goes is like the first 2 weeks are like, I think it's usually like a shorter play, which was what 2 was, and then like a longer play. And so they had like the second place winners would be in the first 2 weeks, and then you'd have the first place winner for a short play and first place for a long play, usually within the second week. And then my wife was in a one-woman show called Bold Grace, which she got a lot of traction out of. So good for her, of course. This isn't her story, though. It's just mine. But I just wanted to mention that because it was at the same time. So that was cool. I was doing a lot of ums here. I was talking about that in class today with status about how you're like, And here I am umming through this video on a camera where no one is actually in the room with me. So it's not like I need to be nervous or lose my status as a storyteller. Anyway, back to me. Yeah, so we went, I remember I drove up there and it was like, okay. But I had a great audition and it was really fun. And so as the summer went on, but let me cut back to that in a minute because eventually we're going to work our way back to Turbo Turkey as well. But anyway, so like I said, once those started, what happened was financially and all that, things gotten a little bit better, but it was also still kind of tough, with the flat tires and things like that, and brake pads. My brake pads went out eventually by the fall, I believe it was. My brake pads went out, and then I didn't really have money to fix that either. Luckily, my landlord was nice enough to, fix them for a reasonable price and stuff like that. So that worked out good. But the other problem was that I had some, I think they were either parking tickets or speeding tickets. I'm pretty sure they were parking tickets. But regardless, because I got these parking tickets, when I went to get my tabs, it wouldn't let me get my tabs because I hadn't paid those parking tickets. And they were like, about 100, 200, something like that, dollars. So in order to be able to pay my tabs, I had to do that. But so I had to wait a little bit. Unfortunately, I had to wait past my tabs being expired. And so my tabs were expired. And I still was driving to work because I was a coach for soccer and I had to bring the equipment to the field. So there wasn't really outside of, and Uber wasn't really big then and cabs are expensive. I couldn't really drag all that on a bus. Because it's like a big bag of equipment and soccer balls and so it's like it wasn't really feasible for me to not drive to a field, and it was my only job. So if I don't go to work, I don't make money. Therefore, not being able to. Anyway, that's how I justified it in my mind. Not saying it was right, just saying what it was. So unfortunately, while I was trying to work on paying those tickets off so I could get the tabs, I would periodically get pulled over by the cops, letting me know, hey, you don't have. Your tabs are, expired. You need to get those taken care of. Absolutely, sir. Yes, I'll do around that. And then the problem with that too was that then I'd have another ticket that I had to deal with on top of it. Now those didn't affect the getting the tabs thing, but the problem was also the ticket came along with the fact that, did I mention how I didn't have insurance in 2009, 2010? Yeah, still hadn't got insurance. Or I think I was trying to get insurance and then it was like, I couldn't get really cheap one or something. I was trying to find really cheap insurance. I think I had one, I forget what it was called, some cheap brand eventually. But, so that didn't help either. So the tickets would be expensive because, they nail you for not having insurance. And yeah, I'm not justifying driving without insurance. Let me just say that. But if you're in the financial situation that I was in at the time, then you would, it is what it is. I'm not justifying it, but it is what it is, and hey, whatever. So anyway, as I said, I get pulled over periodically while I was going to work usually, or just on my way home from work. Periodically, I was looking for other jobs to go along with it, but in the meantime, I had the unemployment thing. Unfortunate thing happened with the unemployment thing. Even a few weeks after I had gotten approved for an extension, somehow, I don't know if I typed in something wrong or typed in a date wrong or something like that, but through this kind of fiasco, basically they thought that I was lying about being unemployed or like a fraud or some shit like that. So then I got the unemployment people like cutting off my extension and basically suing me for money that I didn't have. Kind of a subpoena, I guess, would be what it was. It was kind of ugly situation, but obviously couldn't pay them then either because I don't have any money because you just cut off my extension. Thank you very much, assholes. Anyway, government. But in the meantime, like I said, I was doing a show, and I'm an actor. And so anyway, I was going to Shakespeare Northwest. We had gotten a new boss at the Kizzle soccer group that I was working at, and he was super nice and all that. But like I let him know like I was going to be doing the show, and there was going to be certain days I couldn't, work because of the show and all that, and because I also had to drive, all the way up to near Bellingham. Which, let me tell you, driving up near Bellingham when you live in Auburn, it's a long drive. Because as soon as you hit that Everett way, trying to get past Everett, holy crap, that is some traffic, ladies and gentlemen. That is some traffic to deal with. So anyway, did that. The show was a lot of fun, like I said. A lot of fun, great cast, great people. The only issue I can really say with it is that when I auditioned on the audition thing, it said something about, I can't remember exactly the phrasing of it, but it was almost like, it was basically like, you'll get paid for da-da-da-da-da, such and such, which my wife later explained to me was, basically if they make enough money on the house, they'll pay you something. So I didn't realize that, so, I'm making this huge drive from Auburn, wasting a lot of gas, with no insurance and expired tabs. And tires that are crapping out on me lately, and they're really cheap tires that I got from a used tire place, because that's all I could afford. So anyway, driving up there, and then I find out, like, I think I was talking to somebody at the thing, and he says, he's like, I think I hadn't actually signed my contract for this show, which is weird. No one ever handed me a contract, so I technically wasn't under contract, so I could have walked at any time, but I didn't because I'm a professional. So anyway, I mentioned that one time, and he said, "Oh, you're not going to get paid now." I'm like, "Oh." And so I was actually concerned. He's like, "Oh, no, we don't get paid for this." And I'm like, what? What do you mean we don't get paid for this? I've been driving all the way up here, and I don't get paid for it? I also remember it was funny because this other guy lived in Algona. His name was Ben, very talented actor, funny guy. He did a great Niles Crane impression, too. He did that for as one of the party goers for some of our scenes in the forest. But anyway, one day I'm like, I was also notoriously bad, and I was still working on this, for like having a really messy front seat and side passenger seat of like just cans of pop or snacks, and then not keeping a trash can in there, or having a trash can that's overflow, so not great. And then he's just like, "Hey, I'm gonna need to ride back to Algona. I hear we're gonna become fast friends." And I'm just like, "Oh, let me clean out my front seat real quick here." So it's always this awkwardness of like, I was just seeing in this, was it 50-50, I think, with Jesse Gordon-Levitt, where like Anna Kendrick's got a messy car, and he's just like, "Okay, we got to take care of it." So it kind of cracked me up because it reminded me, I'm like, yeah, I'm a bit messy like that. I try to be I'm a little bit better about keeping a trash bag in my car now, but there's times where it's like, oh, right, I need to put a trash bag in, and clean that. So it is what it is. Like I said, I'm on the go a lot. I worked 2 jobs, and that time I was just working one, but doing what you're doing. So like I said, the show itself, like I said, was great. Like I said, good cast. The one thing that bothered me too was like, after I'd found out we weren't getting paid, I wasn't pissed. I wasn't like, "Oh, I'm walking that," because I still was enjoying it. And it's like, I made a commitment, I stick to my commitments. But it was also just like, at one point where like I was like trying to comp a ticket for my wife, and like they're like, okay, well, that's okay. Comp ticket, that's $3. I'm like, no, I don't think you quite understand. The way a comp ticket works is I don't pay anything. You see, that means that you don't charge me anything. And then I just remember one of the girls in there was talking. She was one of the manager people or whatever, and she's like, "All right, guys, buy some T-shirts, buy some things." I'm like, have any money because you guys aren't paying me. Only want me to buy a T-shirt. But it's all right. She's a nice person, but it was just kind of one of those things like, I'm not getting any money for this. So anyway, the show itself was fun, and I remember we had a great party though on Guaymas Island because one of them had like a house on there, and it was a lot of fun party. I drank lots. I drank lots there. I just remember I brought pop and stuff. And what'd you bring? I brought pop. But it was this one funny situation. And it doesn't sound funny because it sounds very dark, but it was funny in context. But we, a couple of us were hanging out the next morning. We're waking up and all that stuff. And this one guy had gotten really drunk and like, I guess he bumped his head or something. Not like super serious, but like so drunk that he was just kind of like, passed out, not dead to the world, but like almost like just like really like he's knocked out. He's gonna be sleeping for a while. And we were just like, I don't know how the context happened, but me and Miles and another guy were just like kind of being like, we're on an island here, man. We may have an I know you did last summer situation here, man. If he doesn't wake up, man, we got to deal with this, all right? We just put him in the ocean, all right? Sharks will get him. They're never gonna see the body, all right? You know. Just remember we saw this tool shed and Miles was just like, let's get some tools out for it. But it was just freaking out. And then we're like, we'll call the freaking cops. I'm like, oh, the island police is going to get us. Oh, no, not the island police. Guaymas Island's finest. We were, so we weren't really plotting murder, but we were doing a Shakespeare show. So I guess it kind of ties in. Although I guess we were doing As You Like It. So it's not really one of those. It's not one of the murder Shakespeare shows. So it was just we were just joking around. But it was kind of a running joke of just like, walking down the beach, just turn around. You pick a rock. Oh, look at that rock. It was just a stupid, fun, dark humored thing that we were doing. And like I said, the guy who was drunk. He's a nice guy. It wasn't anything. We weren't going to actually plot his murder or anything like that. It was just one of those kind of weird, dark humor things. And it was funny. And we just kind of made jokes about it the rest of the, show. So that was fun. Like I said, as I was auditioning for that, then I auditioned for director named Tim Hart and Gary Schwartz, who runs the Valley Center stage in North Bend, yes. North Bend, Washington, which they did film Twin Peaks at. They actually have that cafe there. And let me tell you, North Bend's super freaking cool. Like the scenery, you got mountains all around you. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful town. And the theater was, at the time, they've got a new space now, but like they were above like a bicycle shop, so you can just go up this long set of stairs. And I hadn't realized it then, but I had actually auditioned for Gary before. He was doing I think it was a sketch group at Redmond or something like that. And I remember when I came to the audition, I'm like, I've seen this guy before. And then when he started talking about doing Viola Spolin stuff, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I've met this man before. Yeah, so it was great. I had this good audition and like, I did read for Dracula and all that, but like, when he let me read for Renfield, and I was like, oh god, I hope I get Renfield. And then I got Renfield. I was like, yes, because that was one of my, I guess, bucket list roles or dream roles to play or shows to be in. And I was like, cool, I get to do Dracula. And I remember too at the time I had also auditioned for this Frankenstein show that Anna ended up being in. She was playing Elizabeth, and I had auditioned for it, but I was also like, man, they've offered me Renfield, and she's like, well, if they offer you something, take the role you've been offered, And even the director said the same thing. He enjoyed my read of the role, but of Dr. Frankenstein. But he's like, that's a great show. Go do it, So, and I did, and I had a great time on that show. I got to have a lot of fun. I had the gummy spiders that I would eat and stuff, and I had this great entrance where I'd come up through the floor and all that, and creep people out and just be creepy. And Dracula eventually snaps my neck on stage. It was, pretty cool. I got to die. But no, it was a dream role. It was a lot of fun. I was out of my mind. Took a lot of fun pictures. I had a straight jacket too. There's a big straight jacket. I remember one time to like I think it was the last show or whatever, like there was a constant thing, a couple guys like to prank or whatever. And I think one of them put like hot peppers or something on my gummy spider. I'm like, I'm on stage like, you bastards. But no, it was great. They were really good, and like Gary and Tim were great to work with, and the cast was great. This phenomenal, nice people. I was so thrilled, and we went out to it was a great place. I think the restaurant's changed now, but what was that place called? Man, I can't remember. They had this really good macaroni and cheese, and that was also the first time I tried Riesling white wine, which I absolutely love. It's my favorite type of wine. It's Riesling. So yeah, so that was cool, and at the same time I'm doing all these stupid tickets and brake pads and all this other shit. But anyway, so that goes on, and then I actually got cast in Inspecting Carol, which is a farce show where people have to I think they have to they're basically a theater company, and they are putting on a Christmas Carol show, and they hire this guy who they think is a great actor, but is just like some hack, and it's a good ensemble show, a lot of good talent there. But what was great about it too is Maggie Larrick, who is the managing director of Burien Actors Theater, which is currently building a new home because unfortunately after the pandemic they tore down their other home because the city sucks. Yeah, I said it. Anyway, but yeah, it was. But she was absolutely great to me because she was directing that show, and she knew I was struggling financially, and and I let her know kind of my situation. So there'd be times where she would just give me an extra $20, under the table here and there, just to get some food or get some gas or whatever I needed to do, and I've always appreciated that. It was a very much a bond, especially when you're if you ever are down in life, go do some theater, because theater people are great. A lot of people get that from church, and if that's your thing, that's great. For me, theater's always been my church. So I think that is, yeah. So that's kind of, see, I'm getting teary-eyed. I'm so emotional. But no, I always appreciate that. Now, luckily, after December, I got this job, whether I wanted it or not. But it was a job for telemarketing, which I'd done telemarketing once before. It was for a few weeks, and it was basically vacation planning, or what we like to call timeshares, and it was bullshit. But this was basically magazine subscriptions, but you were just basically calling all these funeral homes and all these other things if they wanted more subscriptions. But anyway, it was a job. I took it because I needed the money, needed the job. I was also in what was it, UW area, and which I was still living in Auburn, so I'd have to get up at 5 in the morning. And then of course my stupid brake pads went out of my car, and then Anna had to drive it. It was a mess. And then I was trying to sell things to just make money, and that was just a pain in the ass too without a car. So I did a lot of busing up and back and forth there. Also, I had I had gotten my bartending license sometime through Jet City. Actually taught a bartending class, and so I wanted to be a bartender, but every single thing I saw on Craigslist or restaurants was just you need at least 5 years experience of bartending experience before you can. I'm like, well, how the hell am I supposed to get it if I can't do the job? So I found this one. It was called Poor Guys and Poor Girls and Some Guys. A clever name. And I met this woman at Applebee's or something like that, and she bought me lunch and all that. And I told her I told her I was an expiring bartender. So I thought, okay, cool. So what they did was they do corporate events or weddings and things, a lot of weddings and holiday parties and things like that. So I did one in December, which made decent money, and then I did a New Year's Eve party where I made a lot of friggin' tips on that. That was a lot of fun. And it was good. I still had some experience, needed to get some more experience with it, but it was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, after that 4th of July, not 4th of July, after the New Year's one, I didn't get another one of those until June. So that's 6 months of that work there. I also had this job called Staff Pro, which basically you would go to football games or hockey games or whatever the case, and you basically were kind of extra security, but you weren't the security guards who actually throw drunk people out. You would just kind of keep your eyes out for them and stuff. And I just remember there was one football game I think I spent more time watching the actual football game than I really did. Because I'm just standing there. I occasionally just walk up and down the stairs, make sure no one's concealing, beer and stuff. But like, yeah, it was easy money, but it wasn't a lot of money. I remember the last one I did. It was in it was in Tacoma at the Tacoma Dome. They were doing their monster truck rally, and my whole job was to press a button for the elevator and just go up and down 3 floors. I was like, okay, well, easy money. Not the most exciting thing, but there you go. So yeah, I said so. 2011 had wrapped up. I was into 2012. I had gotten the tickets on like a payment plan. I had gotten one in Pierce County, which I'll get to this in a minute, and that kind of will add some problems for me later. But like, so I thought I had after December. I thought, okay, I checked in with the license bureau because I had to make sure my license wasn't suspended because of these stupid tickets, and it was a whole mess. So obviously I couldn't. That was one thing I didn't do. I did not try to drive with a suspended license. I'm not stupid. But like, I had to fight to get that back and pay to get that back and all that. So it was what it was. So yeah, so I thought everything was settled, and then February came along, and I'm driving to start a soccer class in Sumner, and I get pulled over, and these guys are like, well, this car is your license is suspended, and you're driving on suspended license. So it's like, so I just did what I said I wouldn't do. But the thing is, I didn't know that it was suspended because I had talked to the people, and they said, oh, there's no more tickets to add here. Well, what happened was I was going down to DuPont for a class and got pulled over on the highway, Pierce County. Well, the problem was the Pierce County tickets didn't go to the King County courthouse. So when I talked to the people at the license bureau, they didn't have record of that ticket because it wasn't going to that courthouse. So here I am in a whole big fiasco of like, okay, now my car is fucking impounded, and now I also had it repossessed during inspecting Carol, which luckily was fixed right after Thanksgiving. But and they were much nicer about it. They actually let me take my stuff out of the car before they took it. They were super nice. So props to those guys who repoed the Prism temporarily. They were nice, much nicer repo people than those people who took my other car, my Galant. My Mitsubishi Galant. I love that car. Anyway, so that was a big thing. My mom ended up having to send some money so we could get it paid. It was just emotionally draining. And I was just kind of like, I would have these job interviews and then like they wouldn't go well. Or I had one in an Everett bookstore where I was trying to drive all the way to Everett. I don't know, but I was desperate. And then like they told me, oh, we're going to have to figure out this change for this and that. I'm like, I was at this point where like things were like computerized now that I was just like, oh, I just press it in and I get the change, but like then they wanted me to like think about it, and I had to think about it in the head, and I had been tired, and I'm like, and so I blew that interview. But I remember I went out for to dinner with Red Robin with Anna, and I was kind of down or whatever, and I had intentionally was going to audition for this show called Moon Over Buffalo at Valley Center Stage, because I'm like, oh, I really liked working there, and but I was also like, oh, maybe probably shouldn't do it. And so I'm like, well, I missed the auditions anyway, no big deal. And then Gary actually contacted me and says, hey, the director saw you in Inspecting Carol and wanted to invite you to callbacks. So I'm like, okay, sure. Just go right to callbacks. Sounds good to me. So I ended up getting in that show. And then Gary actually worked with me a little bit too, because you could see that I was, it wasn't that I was a bad actor or nothing like that, but I was definitely very stiff. I wasn't like making eye contact. It was like the simple things that I had known about acting, but I had been out of it a little bit. So like for some reason, because you forget some things. And so he worked with me a lot, doing a lot of the Spolin game stuff from Viola Spolin. And that was a lot of helpful. And just like really thinking about all your movements while you're in the moment and stuff like that. And just like, and he gave me a lot of funny moments that I got to do on stage too. And that was a farce as well. It's a great show, Moon Over Buffalo. If you ever get a chance to see it, great show. But I played the romantic lead, and that was the first time I kissed a girl on stage. Because as you remember, Psycho Beach Party, I kissed a guy. It's the first time I kissed a girl on stage. So that was cool. And so yeah, after that had wrapped up, I actually got rehired at the old Wally World, and so yeah, then things started to turn around a little bit more financially. I was able to pay some back rent and get that caught up, and that was good. My landlord definitely appreciated that, and I definitely still appreciate my landlord for being reasonable and working with me on a payment plan so that I could pay it back up. So a good guy. Appreciate all the time I lived there, because I lived upstairs in a room, and his family lived the rest of the house. So it was a shared space. But yeah, it was. I lived there for about 8 years, I think. So it was good space, and I appreciate him for that. But yeah, I started working overnights, and that was when I started working overnights, which hey, I was a night owl anyway, so whatever. Wow, this video is already 30 minutes. I barely said anything about Turbo Turkey at all. So this is the Turbo Turkey Part 3, where I barely talked about Turbo Turkey at all. So buckle in. It's going to be longer this time. Ha ha! Anyway, because I just want to keep on talking, because that's what I do. I just keep talking, because I'm caffeinated. Anyway, so as 2012 rolled in and I started catching up on things, caught things up, I did have one more issue with tickets, but we got it settled pretty quickly. I saved up the money at that time, and I was actually able to pay it off. So at that time, I had insurance. I had all the stuff by 2012. Once I got rehired, was like insurance, good, awesome. Insurance, tabs on top of things. Tickets on a payment plan at least. I was paying them off. So that was good. And then the fall came around. I was like, okay, I had some sketches. And I've been conversing with Michael and talking to Cedar, and Stephanie had moved on because she was doing some other stuff, which I appreciated. She was great. And then Jordy was going to come back too, but then we had some auditions. And Simon had come back to town as well, and he was going to originally come back and do stuff with us, and then he ended up, having a change of heart somewhat. It wasn't a big deal, but I may not have reacted the best to it. But as we've seen, I overreact to things. But it was all good. And then Josh had come to town too. And what was cool was Burien was doing their kind of beginning of the year gala where they kind of preview the plays that they're going to do. And they asked but it was like an all day 24-hour thing or whatever of like performance and stuff like that. And they asked if we wanted to do something improv. So me and Josh were the only two there. But it was kind of Josh's return to Seattle after being in Florida for a little bit. And so that was cool. It was good to get Josh back. So me and Josh just did 2-man improv, and they loved it, So it was that opened some doors later on, not right away, but it was something we got to do more with BAT and stuff like that. So that was cool, and it was great to have Josh back. So we did some auditions. We got some more people in there, a couple more females. So that was cool. Diana came back as well. So Michael and Diana were back in too. Cedar was going to come back in, but he was dealing, much like me, with some financial problems, something we related to on very much. So he ended up having to bow out for the moment. And we had gotten a girl named Jillian, who was really funny, and this girl named Reagan, who I had kind of, I had a one-on-one audition with her at a library because she wasn't able to make the auditions we were doing, and she was also on a traveling show. So we kind of corresponded by email, and she was going to join us in November. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And so she was good, and this other girl named Sarah, and she was fun. And then we had a girl named Mariah, and so we had like 4 women, and that's I was kind of casting things like, oh, we'll just put this person here, put this person here. Jordy ended up backing out just because she heard we had a lot of talent come out, and so she, and to be fair, I totally understand. I do regret I would have tried to work harder to keep Jordy involved, because Jordy was really professional and just super nice person to work with and stuff. So on that, it was my bad. I should have done more to keep her around. But anyway, rehearsal started with that. We had some more sketches. I'd written some. Josh, I think, had written a few. Michael had written a few. Obviously, the girls were new to this thing. Diana had done a lot of writing with sketches and that. She was just more performer and director too, of course. But yeah. Oh, also, when Simon bowed out, then Norm actually came back too, because he'd been healed from his back injury. So we had Norm, so I had him kind of take whatever roles I had Simon involved. And it was interesting because Norm is very what we'll call what do they call it? Dry sense of humor. And the thing with dry sense of humor is you have to. It's one of those things and if you don't know someone and they use a dry sense of humor on you and for their first time, you might just think they're an asshole. Because it may comes out, I know him, so I was like, that's just Norm, be a Norm. But, your first introduction to someone is not the best if you have a dry sense of humor and they don't know that. But at least if you explain it, then it's not so big. of deal. But yeah, so we had some pretty good rehearsals. Unfortunately, we'll get into some of the drama. So unfortunately, there was a time at a rehearsal where one of our members, who I will not mention, I'm not going to mention their name because that's not fair to point them out about this, but basically came in a position to not really perform or rehearse. They were not in a great state. Let's just say that much. And it was embarrassing because they had never been like that before. Like I'd seen them, out and about doing whatever, but I didn't really think about it being an issue or that they would come to rehearsal in that state of mind. So that was a bit, awkward to deal with because we're trying to rehearse and then they're being really loud and it's just a whole thing. But hey, that's what it is. So, I had a conversation with that person, said, hey, you can't show up to rehearsal like that because that's not fair to everybody else and it's not professional and things like that. So anyway, and they were fine for a little while. And we also had a situation where we were supposed to meet at Sarah's house, I believe, because she shared a house with some other housemates. And we were going to rehearse there on a Saturday. And Mariah had been kind of, to a few rehearsals. And then I remember, we were supposed to meet that Saturday at Sarah's house, but then it ended up having to, not happen. She wasn't able to use the house, which, stuff happens, whatever. And then when I sent the email to let them know, well, I guess we won't be able to meet today. Then Mariah basically sent this email well, this professionalism is not good. I'm quitting. It's you've barely been there. But and at the time we were kind of upset. What the hell? You've barely even been there. How do you mean you're talking about, but I get it. In hindsight, it's yeah. I mean, to be fair, it wasn't the most professional. We were still meeting at the fitness center and stuff like that, doing stuff there. And so, yeah, the rehearsals were going well. Reagan joined us a little bit after that. So it was all right, we'll just have her take the roles that Mariah was going to play. And so life goes on. So as we're getting close to things, we ended up going back to, Collectric was too expensive at the time. And I realized later you could do a 50-50 split with the house, but at the time I didn't know that. So I was okay, we'll go back to the Rendezvous. We'll do the Jewel Box again. And the Jewel Box deal was that, we did a Saturday show the previous time, and while we didn't exactly sell the show out, I think we broke even, but, they wanted good draws on Friday and Saturday, which is, hey, they're a business, they're trying to make money, I understand that. So I think we had a Wednesday show and a Thursday show or something like that. So, not the best night to have a show, but whatever. So here's where some of the problems arise. So I can remember I had this sketch called Khazar the Barbarian, and it was very much like a take on a fantasy genre type of thing, your Lord of the Rings or whatever the case. And I was the title character and all that. And I had also written a sequel to Electric Man, which we were going to try to do as well. And so I remember I had no intentions of it being a video. My intention was it was just going to be a live sketch. But then the rest of the people all kind of were talking oh, we should do it as a video. That'd be fun. We'll have a video on the show. And I'm oh, okay, fine. So we ended up meeting 3 weeks in a row to film this thing. And Michael brought his camera. And it was super freaking cold. It's freaking January. Super snowy and rainy and just cold as hell. I think we met at where the heck is it? It's right by UW. It's what is it? Arboretum? I think that's what it's called, the Arboretum. And they were nice enough to let us, film there and stuff. And it turned out pretty good. But the problem was we had I think 1 week Reagan couldn't be there, another week Julian was sick with something, and then it was oh well, and so we ended up having to green screen Julian in later, and so it turned out it was pretty funny, but in hindsight it was a well written sketch and stuff. But it was just one of those scenes of man, this is just more time, doing this stuff. Now I will also say that Josh is a avid pot smoker. I'll just say how much. That's, I guess, the nice way. It's legal, whatever. And I hadn't realized previous in 2010 that he had come to rehearsals basically, blazed out of his mind. But he was doing that, at our rehearsals. And also, Ken used to drive him there to rehearsals, but now Ken wasn't there. He's still in Florida. So I would pick him up at his house and all that. And a lot of times because of traffic, or we'd stop at a gas station to get a snack or something. But like, end up being late for the rehearsals, which didn't, give the best professionalism. And I'm not blaming Josh for that. It is what it is. But like, yeah. So that was a thing too. So as we were going here, I called John Richardson again so he could MC for us again for this show, and he was happy to do it. Another cool thing about John Richardson, I remember, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but like when we were doing the eclectic show, it was like one or two people before more people showed up. I was like, oh, no, if we're gonna make any money here, and he's like, well, don't worry about me, I'm good. He was happy to just MC. He didn't care about getting paid. So that, to me, it shows all class. So shout out to him for that, because a lot of people are just trying to get paid. And they're entitled to get paid, but it's a nice thing when someone is just like, hey, it's not a big deal, pay it forward. So, So anyway, I can remember like, it was one of the last tech rehearsals, and we decided not to do the Electro Man 2 sketch just because it needed more rehearsal. It needed a little more time, so we scrapped that one. And unfortunately, the same person who had been, I guess the word inebriated would be the best way, at a previous rehearsal also came to that rehearsal in that state. So that was awkward to deal with. And so we dealt with that. So that wasn't great. So that didn't give us the best mindset into going into the show. But we went into the show, and I remember me and Michael went to pick Josh up. And he said, oh, no, I'm just going to go ahead and take the light rail there, and I'll just meet you guys there, because he had some costumes he was grabbing and all that stuff. Okay, whatever. And I remember, like, we're all sitting there rehearsing, going over things, and it's like, where the hell is Josh? Where the hell is Josh? And we're starting to freak out, because it's like, is he coming? He said he was taking the light rail. He shouldn't have been here by now, right? And so like we're getting to the point where we're like ready. Okay, you're gonna have to take this role. I'll take this role. And everybody's pretty pissed off. And he finally arrives, like I think 10 minutes or something before the show, and like I kind of read in the riot act a little bit, which I apologized for later, and he apologized to everybody later, which is fine, whatever. Show turned out pretty good. I could tell that by doing the 2-act structure, that the audience reactions to the second half sketches were not, I think, quite as much as they were to the first half. And I think what had happened there was more just, it's too long of a show, That's why it's better to just go with like 1 hour, and now we're done. Hope you laughed, yay. But I can remember I had this sketch called Trash Police that I had written based off of experience I had while coaching soccer in Mill Creek. Where I decided, I was at a lunch break from the thing, and I decided to, just clean out my car a little bit. Not a whole lot, just a little bit of trash. And I threw it in the trash cans there, and these people from the Parks and Rec came out to me and says, we're going to need you to take that trash out of there. This is only for park trash. So I made a whole sketch called Trash Police, which Julian and Reagan were in and did a great job, and they were super funny. As time goes on, we do the show, everything's fine. Then we're rehearsing. And then, unbeknownst to me, I hadn't realized that Reagan I knew she was in a play, but I didn't know that it was going to conflict with the other performance. So I was like, oh, okay, well, crap. So I'm like, okay, we're going to have to adjust. Then I find out from the Jewel Box that they've double booked us, so now we only have an hour show. So like, okay, we're going to have to cut this sketch, this sketch, this sketch, this sketch. Meanwhile, we're also going to talk to this person who came inebriated, and we want them to kind of just, go deal with that stuff, and get help that you need and all that stuff. And so we had to have that kind of awkward conversation with them, and it wasn't great, but it was what it was. And we didn't have Reagan for that other show, so we ended up just choosing like 4 sketches. We had a couple of us do some stand-up, just why not, because I used to do stand-up, and then I think we did 1 improv game at the end or something like that. But let me tell you though, as far as negative energy at that show, holy shit, you could cut it with a knife. Oh, let me go back real quick. Sorry not to jump too far, but I remember we had after the first show, we had a plan to kind of structure things in terms of roles of what we were doing. Like I was kind of the visionary artistic director thing. And then Sarah was going to be kind of managing director. Jillian was going to be like in charge of props, costumes, makeup, things like that. Reagan was going to run the website. Michael was going to do stuff for the YouTube channel and the video stuff, camera stuff. I don't think we had an official role for Josh or Norm, but thing with Norm was it was like we're going to give Norm did well in his smaller roles. We'll just kind of keep him around for smaller roles. And like, okay, cool. And so, and then, you know, the main thing I remember coming out of the meeting is they wanted to suspend Josh for not only being late to that show, but because coming to rehearsal, you know, blazed out of his mind. Which, let me tell you, at the time, me and Josh are super good friends now and super close. But at the time, I think we were still friends, but he was also doing stand-up, so he had some split focus. And I think, admittedly, I was kind of not scared to tell him to not do that, but also, like, it's one of those things where it's hard to bring up, hey, please don't smoke weed before rehearsal. Which, I think, for most people, it's like, oh, I just won't do that. But at the time, it was kind of like, he's like, oh, whatever, I do that all the time. You didn't care before. So, you know, and that's not saying he's saying that, but, like, in my mind, you know. So yeah, anyway, but I thought we had like a good meeting or whatever. And I said, well, I did talk to him about it and stuff like that. So, and well, that was kind of a pulling at teeth a little bit with him for a while, as I'll get into later, probably in another video. So anyway, we do the other show and it doesn't go too bad, but there's a lot of negative energy. I feel it in the air. We're eating some snacks afterwards, you know, have a little dinner afterwards, and I could just tell, like, there's, like, Jillian doesn't look happy, Sarah doesn't look happy. We had this situation where we're supposed to throw a trash can, I think it was from the trash we saying, we're supposed to throw a trash can, and the trash can got dented, and Sarah kept saying, like, well, you know, you owe me $10 for that trash can because it was my trash can. And I'm like, oh, okay, no problem, like, I'm happy to pay the money. And then like 5 minutes later, she'd be like, oh no, don't worry about that trash can, it's just trash. So it was like a back and forth where she kept bringing it up, and it was just like, okay, that's fine. I don't have a problem paying you $10 for a new trash can. It was my fault. I threw it. It broke. Okay, my bad. No big deal. So anyway, about a week later or whatever, we had talked about having another kind of powwow meeting to sort of plan some, you know, the next show. Because we got like, okay, my whole thing was like, okay, that was a little bit of a rough go. We had to cut our show down. We had a situation with a member who we had to send away for now. We had the Josh Weed thing. And it's just like a lot of stressful things going on. So anyway, Sarah says, hey, can we meet? Because we were supposed to meet for like another kind of, what is it? Where you all bring a food? Potluck. Yeah. That's what it was before, a potluck. So we were supposed to meet for a potluck. But that ended up getting canceled. And so I remember, like, yeah, Sarah wanted to meet for a drink. So, oh, can we meet and talk? I'm like, okay. So I drove from Enumclaw that day, because I had coached in Enumclaw, all the way up to not West Seattle, up to North Seattle, to meet for a drink at this place called the Chupacabra. Excellent drinks. And I met with Sarah, and in my mindset at that time, I'm like, okay, Sarah's going to quit, right? Like, I had a feeling that she might quit. But that was the only feeling I was thinking. I'm like, okay, I've been through this before. Someone's going to meet me and they want to, you know, or they're going to send me an email and they're going to quit, you know. But that wasn't what I was thinking she was going to, that's all I thought she was going to tell me, that she was leaving the group. But instead she brought up that her, Jillian, and Reagan were all leaving the group. And I remember at the time it was just like, this keeps happening. And I think she misconstrued that, and I want to make that clear. I didn't mean like women kept leaving the group. I just meant people had to keep leaving the group. And it wasn't like every single one was just like, damn that Adam and his fucking lousy leadership. You know, it was more just like circumstances of, I'm broke and I need to deal with this, or I have these other projects or whatever, or I'm moving, whatever the case. I'm going to college. You know, there were lots more factors than, it wasn't just like, well, I'm pissed off about this, so I'm going to rock away. So I just want to clarify that in a moment. But I was also kind of shocked. Not that she was leaving, but all three of them were leaving, and then the other two didn't even show up in person to tell me this. So that was more kind of hurt feelings on that. And so I was just like, okay. So I kind of sat there just kind of trying to process it. And I think she had another friend show up, and we were trying to balance it out. And I just told her, hey, look, maybe we can, you know, let's all get together. Let's try to talk this out a little bit more. Let's not jump to conclusions, because, you know, the thing for me is like that I don't think they understood was between those first two shows, I had to come up with a show that got cut down to an hour. I had to send another person basically to rehab. I had to deal with another person not being able to do that second show. I had to, you know, but we're all starting these other roles. But the thing was, I was happy to have them start all those positions and roles after we got through the second show. So we could take a breath. We could all talk. If you had if Josh still isn't following along with the weed thing, tell him that. But it was a very contradictory thing where I'd get emails, and basically me and Sarah continued talking the next day about just like that it was a boys club and that I would only run it across Michael with things and not the whole group, or like me and Michael were talking, and that's true to a point, but it wasn't like it was to exclude them. For me, it was just like I had worked with Michael, I'd worked with Norm, I'd worked with Josh before, I'd worked with Diana before, and so it wasn't like where's these damn women getting their place. It had nothing to do with that at all. It was not a sexist thing. As far as some of the sketches go, I believe it was Reagan said, "We're just playing bimbos and Bond girls," was her quote, which Sarah let me know it was her that said that. But like, and it was just like, I was sitting there and looking at the sketches and just like, yeah, there's like one or two sketches where that's the case. Like in Kazar, in hindsight, there's a kissing scene in Kazar between me and Reagan, which we ended up just doing the kind of cover the mouth yip thing, which worked fine. I had no problem with it. And I was always very, professional email wise, saying, hey, what do you feel about this? What do you want to do with this? Honestly, in hindsight, I would have just cut the whole kiss and not really care. It didn't really matter. It wasn't that important to the scene in hindsight, but it was just what I wrote at the time. So whatever. And so, yeah. So that was a bit heartbreaking because it was just frustrating, because it was like we finally had a good core thing going on there, and now the three people we auditioned are leaving, and I felt very hurt by the other two not getting in touch with me, or even an email at least, to explain their side of the story and all that. And so yeah, that was awkward. But that's the thing I always said before. It's like my side of the story was like, I was like, the problem I had with it too was when they were talking about the sketches or like not having a say and things like that. It's like no one ever said anything. No one ever said, hey, Adam, can I talk to you about this? Hey, Adam, here's an email real quick. I didn't want to say this in person, but So, because that's the thing, I'm a very easygoing person. If you come to me and say, hey, I've got a problem with this, or hey, this sketch isn't really, I don't feel comfortable with this sketch, or that's fine. We can change it. That's why things are called rewriting things. We can rewrite stuff and fix it. It was never like, well, this is what's written and deal with it, or like get in place, woman. It was never like that at all. And so that's why I'm kind of like, okay, you want to say certain sketches were written in a way that wasn't the best? Sure. I don't think we'd written as much for the women characters, and that might be a true point. I'll give you that. But it wasn't like some kind of malicious boys club where we're all just grabbing our dicks and farting or something. It's just like, it's like, oh, those damn women getting play. It was nothing like that at all. It's like I haven't been in a relationship for as long as I've been and married to a woman if I was like that, and yeah, the stuff with Reagan too is that like Reagan was always smiled to my face, never had a cross word between us. And then I find out that basically she'd be after the rehearsal saying that was so unstructured and and even Sarah said you should talk to Adam about it. So it's like, but she didn't, and that's when I have a problem with it. Was like, it just was like we could have just sat down and talked about this, and. Like I said before, a lot of the changes would have happened in time. We would have, like, honestly, after that show was over, we didn't have anything booked after that last Rendezvous show. We still had more sketches to write. I was looking forward to seeing them write some sketches. They had some ideas that I thought were good. I'm like, let's meet. Let's talk. Let's do this. So for them to just kind of walk away, and two of them not to, have the decency to show up in my person, was frustrating. And, like I said, water in the bridge, as things go. But it's just, I don't know. It's something and Anna would tell you, like, I've talked about this type of stuff so many times where it just popped in my head and it was just like, man, I need closure on it. But like, so that's not what this is necessarily about. It's not about like needing closure on this whole situation because whatever, it's in the past. Life goes on, life moves on. But yeah, it was frustrating to deal with. It was hurtful. It was very hurtful, and I don't think that there was any malice in it necessarily, but it was just one of those things where, like, it's things like where it's like this stuff could have just been talked about and settled very easily. If you had a problem with the sketch, if you had a problem with someone in the group directly, and not like, oh, he's smoking weed before class, but like he's being inappropriate or anything like that, all you gotta do is talk to me. And I've made that very clear from here on out. Anytime we audition people, like, please, if there's ever a problem with anyone in the group or anything we're doing, please come talk to me or talk to Anna or whatever, so that we can nip that in the bud. Because the last thing I want to do is make anyone uncomfortable. The last thing I want to do is make anyone unhappy or not want to be there. So that was a tough situation to deal with. Having them gone, but we moved on, and it was just me, Norm, Josh, and Michael for a while there, and we just kind of tried to structure things. We would do a couple video shoots of sketches we'd written, and they turned out pretty good. And I just remember we filmed one at Jet City. Actually, they were very nice to let us film there and stuff, and. Yeah, and then Michael and Josh did one called The Darkest Hour, which is kind of a takeoff of Twilight Zone. That was a lot of fun. And so anyway, as time went on, I talked to Norm about it, and Sarah, I don't know, it was weird how like she would tell him things that she didn't even say to me, and just like she didn't. I remember one statement that really stuck with me. It really stung me. She's like, "I don't want to be in a group where you're in charge," basically, and I'm just like, okay. But it's like, well, guess what? I founded the group, so I'm in charge. So, yeah, I mean, that's the way it's going to be. And to me, it always felt like, in a way that, like, it was almost like trying to make a power play, like, oh, I can run this group better than you. And it's like, well, that may be true to a point, but I'm not going anywhere, because if there's no me, there's no Turbo Turkey at the end of the day, because I created the damn thing, I named the damn thing, so... that's the long and the short of it. So anyway, like I said, we went on. Norm kind of took on the manager-director role, which had varying results. We had very many arguments, fully admit that. Sometimes I yelled at him, sometimes he yelled at me on the phone for 3 messages in a row. But to his credit, Norm did actually get us into a thing, a couple things. We did one show, it was in an alleyway thing or something, but it was at a restaurant somewhere in Belltown, and the thing was they were going to pay us in food, so I'm like, all right, whatever. So we did a bunch of sketches, and I just remember we were there, and like the band was supposed to wrap up. That was outside, like they were supposed to wrap up, so we had the focus, but like they had TVs on at the same time that we were up on the stage, and the band was still playing. And I'm just like, no one's even fucking paying attention to what we're doing. We just got to a point where we're just like, let's just fucking have fun for ourselves and just fucking do it. Get our free food and get out of here. So that was a miserable situation there. I mean, I appreciate the free food, but it's like, if you're going to have us there perform, fucking have a focus on us. Give us some attention. Like, hey, here's this group that's performing. Pay attention to the stage, It just felt kind of very unprofessional to me. It is what it is. But Norm also had got us signed up for a thing called Sketch Fund, which... was for the Sketch Fest that was coming up in September. And I never submitted for Seattle Sketch Fest just because I was like, you know what, we needed to have more shows under our belt, and we had done improv, and we kind of leaned for improv or sketch, or doing both. So I was like, I didn't feel like, since we weren't doing regular shows, I didn't feel like we were ready to submit for it. But Norm was just like, oh, let's try it out. So the basic way it was supposed to be was like 4 rounds. Sorry, I've been talking a lot. Need some water. And it was like 4 rounds, and then each round you'd have like, I think you'd have 3 minute sketch, 5 minute sketch, 7 or 8 minute sketch. I think the final sketch could be as long as 10 minutes or 8 minutes or something like that. I can't remember exactly how it was. But we, the four of us had worked out, 4 sketches that we were ready to do if we were able to advance. And it was at the, what is it? What theater is it? Let's see. Copious Love was running it for a while, but before that it was Ballard Underground. That's what it is. They were doing it at the Ballard Underground. Oh my God, I've been talking for an hour. Well, see, half the thing I wasn't talking about Turbo Turkey, so we're getting through 2012 here, people. Just bear with me. As I said, I was off for 2 weeks. I'm talking a lot. Anyway, I promise the next video will not be as long. So, anyway, we got to this tournament. Anna came to support us and stuff. And Simon and his girlfriend were going to come too, and they ended up being late. But the way they would do it by votes was like people would turn money in. So, and it's a great, as a fundraiser, hey, great idea. You're getting money coming in. But as a voting capacity, if you didn't have 20 friends that came with money, you ain't going to advance. And what had happened, we had a show, our sketch was basically ice cream versus snow cone vendor is what I had written. And Norm was playing the dad, and Michael was the kid, and I think I was the ice cream vendor, and he was the snow cone vendor, or something like that. Or maybe I may have been, Josh was the, one of the two. Anyway, wasn't the best sketch I ever written, but I was hopeful for it. It did get a few laughs. The problem, I think, was we wasted time because Norm was trying to, like, tape a sign to the chair, and it's like, we don't fucking need to do that. No. Like, it was just wasting time. Like, people would have gotten the idea, I think, without a little sign that says ice cream vendor, but it's Norm. He does what Norm does, God love the guy, but it was just one of those, like, so the person that was against us in that round, a very nice guy, but his whole comedy was, like, he came out in, like, this cow outfit, like you get from a costume store or something. And then he just told a bunch of, like, cow puns. And that was his whole act. And it's like, and then when the votes came in, I think he had several friends there too. So it's like, and they voted for him, and we was very close. It was a very close race. But at the end of the day, we lost to a guy in a cow outfit. And I'm not bitter about it. I don't want to make it very clear. It's not a bitterness. It's more of the frustration. It's like, that's all you're going to do with it? Like, imagine having someone show up in a cow costume and then just going into something completely off base of what, rather than being like, obviously I'm in a cow costume, let me tell a bunch of cow puns. It's more of like I would just come with a cow costume and then just, being like, let me tell you the story of my life. Like fake cigarette. Yeah, but like not even acknowledge that you're wearing a cow costume. That would have been funnier. Just me personally, just my sense of humor, I guess. But like I said, it won fair and square. It's all good. I just remember we went out afterwards and like everybody wanted sushi, and I don't like sushi, but they had teriyaki there, so I had teriyaki at least. So that was fun at least. But that was also where Josh came up with his Southern lawyer character, which was pretty funny. But yeah, so that was cool. I mean, it was a cool experience. It had been the first time we'd really been around other sketch groups because I knew they existed. They were out there, but I'd never met them. So, it was kind of cool to be like, okay, this is the sketch community. Let's see how things go, And a part of me was like, in hindsight, I'm like, well, we probably should have stayed and watched the rest of the shows. But I think our own little egos are just like, we thought we were just going to come in and be like, we're experts, we'll just clean these guys out. And then we lost in the first round. So it's like, okay, well, we're done. But we didn't know anybody either anyway at that time. So it wasn't like, hey, I'm staying for this friend. It's like, you know these people. So yeah, but as luck would have it, we did actually get into Sketchfest that year. And Norm had done a lot of like meeting up with the people who were running Sketchfest and talking to them and, talking us up pretty good. So we did get to do 4 sketches in the Sketchfest, and that was also at our good friends, the Jewel Box. And so we did that show, and it was fun. But I remember we had 4 sketches. One sketch was, I called it rewriting books, and it was just basically commenting on the still going on thing of remaking every goddamn movie that was ever made, especially if it's an 80s movie or 90s movie. But like rewriting classic novels as like, let's reboot that as that, Huckleberry Finn should be, or, whatever I can't remember what else I wrote in there, but it was kind of just like trying to propose that we rewrite these books as completely different books. Let's completely take that crap out about that. And so it was a decent sketch, but probably needed a little bit more space. Then me and Josh did the male version of Trash Please, because it's like, well, hey, you two left that sketch behind. Sorry, it's ours now. And that went pretty well. That got a good laughs. And then Michael had a sketch called Henchman's Insurance, which was tied into another sketch that we did later. But it was a cute sketch. It's basically like almost like a commercial for Henchman's Insurance. You know, people are just getting blown up left and right. So it was a cute sketch. And then the sketch we wrapped up with, which I regret that we wrapped up with that sketch, was Temporary In-Home Nurse. And this was a sketch that Norm wrote about his back injury and him dealing with a really crappy nurse, I guess, in-home nurse that was there and really didn't do much for him at all, I guess. Which is, a fair story to talk about. The problem was that we had already cut it down. I swear the thing was probably at least 30 minutes. Probably, if I could count. It was probably 30 minutes long. Not in real context, but it felt like it was 30 minutes long. Me and Michael just had bit roles at the end, but like Josh was playing the nurse, and Norm was playing himself. And it was just this long, dredging sketch. Had its moments. Could have been funny in a shorter version, but it was just kind of like, yeah, this nurse sucks, but I am wonderful. It's just like, well, and it's just in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, we should have not used that sketch. But I was trying to be nice to Norm because he had done so much work to get us there. So I definitely still credit him for helping us get into Sketchfest for the first time. But it was just one of those things where, like, he had this other sketch called DSHS, which I think was much more relatable if anyone has ever gone down and done that stuff. And I kind of wish we had done that sketch instead of his in-home nurse sketch, but it was just one of those things, a matter of time. Like, oh, this is what we're doing, and we have 20 minutes here, so let's just make the most of it. But it was like, I think we had the crowd for Trash Please and Henchman Insurance, and then pretty much about 3 or 4 minutes into that sketch, nobody's laughing. Oh boy. Anna was laughing here and there, but like it's like, okay, well, we've lost the crowd. Oh well. But we had a good time. We took a lot of funny pictures afterwards, and and I think that was all we did. We did do auditions. Yeah, we auditioned for some more people, and I'm gonna go ahead and stop that now because we're almost to the end of 2012. Or no, 2013. We're in 2013, guys. We jumped right ahead from 2012 right into 2013. Holy crap. This is like a double video. I just won't shut up. Anyway, so I kind of talked a little bit of my acting, so half the video was me talking about the acting role, so that's fine. Anyway, so we're into 2013. I'll talk about next time I'll talk about a show I did in 2013 as well, which I forgot to mention. That's okay, though, because we were focused on Turbo Turkey. So I'll talk about the auditions and things that came out of that. And cool. So, yeah, my throat's hurting from talking, so I'm going to shut the hell up now. So I hope you enjoyed our part 3, our extended edition of 1 hour and 8 minutes of me rambling on. Hope you enjoyed that little trip down memory lane, and we will see you next time. Have a great night.